Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the introduction, Emma. As Emma mentioned, I'm here today with the UN Office of Counterterrorism, and I specifically work within the UN Office of Counterterrorism's Counterterrorism Center, which is essentially the space within UNOCT where we do capacity building. So although we're global and I'm based in New York, we have a number of different programs across the world, working in a number of areas. Predominantly this year, we're working in Southeast Asia and a little bit in East Africa, but really working directly with member state officials within specific national or sub-regional governments, and very specifically with civil society organizations, youth leaders, women's organizations, so quite a broad range in terms of beneficiaries. And today, I wanted to focus a little bit more specifically on our work on AI and PCVE, which really took course over the mainly last year into this year, and to really talk about how we see it really shaping, how AI is shaping the environments of PCV practitioners and really influencing how communities engage and interpret information and experience inclusion or exclusion. So just to go over very briefly, this is kind of the timeline of the AI PCV project that was launched last year, very generously funded by the Republic of Korea. And this project brought together three main elements. The first was really around the development of a practitioner guide on AI and PCVE, really grounded in global evidence, which I'll go into quite a bit of detail. We also worked through a pilot curriculum to really test how that practice guide was relevant in practice and could translate to PCV practitioners. And then this was closed with a capstone global dialogue that was held in February of this year. And together, these were really designed to support practitioners to engage with AI in an informed and safe and context-sensitive way. So this is just the brief breakdown of the global practice guide on AI and PCVE. And it really brings together practical use cases for prevention. It covers human rights, ethical risks, and mitigation strategies for that, and also includes a workbook at the very end of it. We wanted it to be very tangible, very useful, so this workbook includes concrete tools that supports decision-making and what risks could be considered. And really, again, the focus for us was never really about encouraging AI adoption, but it was about giving PCV practitioners a landscape in which they can navigate AI and really decide for themselves if it was appropriate by providing those tools. So just quickly, if you're interested, this is the QR code for the guide online. I also brought some copies with me today, which I'll put outside during the coffee break in case it's of interest. Please do take a look at it. We're very curious to know how useful it might be for practitioners in the room. Again, this is also geared at policymakers in the room as well, working on PCVE. So just quickly also to talk about the evidence base that was really used to inform the guide. When we were started, there wasn't that much really in development in the space of AI and PCVE, as earlier pointed out by Hidayah. I think we're kind of grasping for straws in terms of finding the evidence. So what we decided to do is launch a survey to really hear from practitioners themselves. And 120 practitioners responded, and this was over 45 different countries, and many individuals in the room were very instrumental in helping us distribute that survey, so we're very grateful because that, again, really served as the evidence base for this work. And really what we found is that the current capacity remains quite limited. So from the practitioners that we heard from, only 23% of them are using AI in their PCV work. Again, this was done last year, so maybe that looks a little bit differently this year, and I would be curious to see if that number has changed. But that 23% was even lower for respondents that were responding from government, so government officials actually using it in their prevention work. And we also see that the confidence in applying AI to PCV context is also limited, particularly one applying AI specifically to PCVE, and also with using AI to mitigate legal, ethical, and human rights issues. And this, again, creates a clear gap where tools are advancing very quickly, but the capacity might be lagging, especially in the prevention space. And in community-facing work, this gap is really felt most acutely, where tools are introduced into highly sensitive environments without the necessary safeguards to support them. When we asked about barriers, these were just some of the main areas that we heard from, and we can kind of couple it into three main areas. The first was mainly around technical skills, so AI literacy and having limitations around how to actually use existing AI tools. The second kind of area in terms of barriers that we heard about is around human hesitation. And some of the practitioners were very, very vocal about this. So really having strong concerns about using AI in this space due to concerns of trust, legitimacy, reputational risk, and the fear of doing harm in sensitive prevention contexts. And the third was really around organizational readiness gaps. So not really having the right policies, governance, and accountability structures in place to feel like they can safely use AI in their prevention work. And while these barriers really sit in kind of these three distinct buckets, we saw that organizational readiness really sits at the core of it. To cover really quickly the training need, just to say that the support for training and capacity building was quite high. So most practitioners, as we can see, did not receive training at that point in time. So 73% of them had not received training on AI, but there was a clear interest in using AI for PCV at the 67% and applying it to the prevention context. So this really just underscores the need for practical capacity building that's linked to prevention contexts. And then just to talk a little bit also about the human rights ethics and kind of need for context. Really the risks, bias, and lack of transparency and misuse, as we know, are well understood. I think we're going to hear a lot about that in the next panel. But the practitioners that we heard from really emphasized that the risks for them were not theoretical. These are risks that they're already seeing in their work when they did employ AI in their respective implementation. So they talked about inaccuracies of the content that the AI produced, and having a lack of context, and that it was misrepresenting communities in some instances. And then also a concern around bias and reinforcing stereotypes. And of course, we know from a social cohesion perspective that this is particularly concerning when it comes to misrepresentation or exclusion of certain communities. And what we found through our research as well is this was very pronounced and more pronounced in low resource settings where the AI tools just weren't trained in their relevant context, so they just didn't feel very comfortable to use them. To quickly cover as well the pilot training. So again, this is us wanting to see how the practice guide worked in practice with practitioners. So we piloted elements of that virtually, and some of you were also taking part in that. Emma was a very, very gracious participant in that as well. And what we did is we asked the practitioners to use one of the tools in the practice guide. It's the risk assessment tool, and this was, they were given a scenario and asked to work in a group to apply that and to really see what risks it introduced and what safeguards would be needed. And we learned through that exercise that it really did help strengthen confidence in identifying risks and applying appropriate safeguards to have them in place. And then again, it also reinforced our understanding that many of the barriers for responsible AI are not technical, but they're actually institutional. So this really highlights the need for organizational readiness. So just to focus again on organizational readiness, this is really, for us, we perceive it's really shaping how risks are assessed, how decisions are made, and how safeguards are applied, and how these interventions are experienced by communities. So what we'll do in the next phase of this project, the project came to a close at the end of February, but now we've launched the second phase, and it really will be focused on organizational readiness. And we're looking at working with 3 civil society organizations that are really focused on prevention, that are really closely connected to communities to work with in a pilot program so that we can help build them out, their AI governance, their risk frameworks, their decision-making processes over the course of this year. So if that's of interest to anyone in this room, please do find me. If you know of an organization that might be interested, this is something that we'd be very interested to hear about. This is also global, so it could be an organization that's really based anywhere. And I'll leave my contact information in case that's helpful, but just really wanted to say that for us, we really see communities also as being very central to this. So one aspect that we're looking at as we're doing the organizational readiness assessments and building out those tools is how communities are actually engaged in the development of those tools at the organizational level. If it's integrated through consultations or through a co-design process, but that's also something I'm very keen to hear from others about if you have any of that experience, and something we'll be looking more closely at in the next iteration of this work. Thank you so much.